Not gonna lie, it's very strange just to look out and see names and no faces. So if you feel like showing me your face, that would make me feel a little less like I'm talking into just a black hole here. But totally up to you if you want to keep the. There we go. See some people. Make sure there's actually some some people there. Um, hey, what's up, Sam Goodwin? Nice to see somebody wave. All right, so Sam Sharp. Triad pairs. I think that one of the things that was difficult for me when I met Marcus, I was actually 17. I only say that because, contrary to what he just told you, I couldn't really play very well at all. But 17, we did Betty Carter Jazz ahead together, and I was remarking to the first masterclass that we did that it was one of the first weeks of my life where I had to deal with a lot of things for the first time. Odd time signatures, really weird chords that I'd never seen before in my life. Musicians that were all like a million times better than me, and it was great. But one of the things that I think I was working on, or I can remember working on, that was really helpful to me harmonically was to work on the idea of triad pairs. So triad pairs to me is a way to express any number of harmonies using only 6 notes. So I want to give you some practical things that you can be working on in terms of just technique to work on triad pairs, but I also want to give you what I think is most important, which is how to apply them to chords. First thing you want to know about triad pairs is that obviously inherent to the name, it's going to be a group of two. When you do it or when you use them together, you want to think about doing triad pairs that are spaced out by usually a whole step, sometimes a half step, and then also tritone linked. One thing, and I would encourage you, write this stuff down as you go because there's a lot of information. I know it's recording, but I think it always is best to write this stuff down. Triad pairs ideally shouldn't have a common tone, meaning that in the 6 notes there shouldn't be a repeated note because as you play them and practice them, it's going to be kind of clunky to try to do so if you have a note that is common to both of the triads. And that should make sense here as we get through a little bit more. For the purposes of the first part of this masterclass, and I don't know if I'll get into much more, we're going to talk about doing triad pairs that are separated by whole step. Okay, so, I'm going to take, and also it's good to talk about what kind of chord quality you're dealing with. So you can do triad pairs with minor triads. So you can do them with major triads. You can do them with augmented triads. I think if you're first starting out with triad pairs, you should do it with major triads separated by a whole step, just because it's a little bit easier on the brain and on the fingers. I'm going to take, let's say, my B flat major, say concert A flat and a concert B flat major triad. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to play each of them in root position. So I'm going to play concert A flat triad, concert B flat triad. Okay, so when you space them out by half step and whole step, you're going to connect them by the next inversion. So that was root position, and then I'm going to play so I play root position A flat, root position B flat. Now I'm going to play first inversion A flat, first inversion B flat. So you're going to hear 6 different triads: root, root, first, first. So. Okay, and the last one would be second inversion of both of them. So second inversion A flat concert, second inversion B flat concert, which sounds like this. So the whole thing together sounds like this. And then you would start over again and you'd be at the root of the first one. Okay, let's see, Sam Sharp, I think that's you, right? Can you try this for me? Let's use your concert B flat, okay, and concert A flat triad. So play your F major triad in root position and your G major triad. Just do that for me. First inversion F, first inversion G. Second inversion F, second inversion G. So yeah, so second inversion F would be A, F, C, right?
Yeah.
Or ACF.
Right.
ACF, and then the last one would be B, D, G for second inversion G, right?
Mm-hmm.
Play that. Play second inversion F, second inversion G. at all, right? Okay, so this is how we would practice them one way, okay? And the saxophone players that are on the call here, um, the directional changes we talked about at 10 o'clock in the morning, these are all valid here. So just quickly for everybody else, whenever you practice something that's technique related, you can practice it 4 ways. All up, all down, one down, and one up. The way that I would classify what he just played is all up because all the triad pairs are moving the same way and they're going up. So okay. If I did all down, I would start on the top of those triads, so on 5, and I go 5, 3, 1, 5, 3, 1, ba da da dee da da. Sounds like this. All right, and if I did one up, one down, it would sound like this. And finally, one down, one up, it sound like this. Okay, so you can hear some different motions, okay, directionally speaking, with those different ways of playing through those triads. And that's going to be important when you go to improvise because it allows you to have some flexibility with the direction of your line. There's a great book, a couple great books that I would suggest you check out from the triad pairs. One is by Gary Campbell. It's called Triad Pairs for Jazz. That was really important to me when I was in high school and early college. There's also one by Walt Weiskopf. I'm not sure what it's called, but if you just type in triad pairs, it'll put you in the right place. Really informative books about how to practice these things to the nth degree and also integrate them into your playing. So I'll give you an example of doing triad pairs linked at the half step, just so we're on the same page. So following the rule that I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that we have, what was the name of the first book? It's called Triad Pairs for Jazz by Gary Campbell. Yeah, Triad Pairs for Jazz by Gary Campbell. So we're going to do triad pairs linked by the half step now. Okay, so following the rule from earlier, we want to have two triads that don't that are separated by half step and don't share a common tone. Purna, can you give me two major triads that are separated by a half step that don't share a common tone?
A and A flat.
Yeah, perfect. A and A flat, right? So let's check it out. A, C sharp, and E, right? And we're thinking major. That's great. So A, C sharp, and E, then A flat. So A flat major, A flat, C, and E flat. That fits the bill, right? We have 6 different notes. They're separated by a half step. So great. So I'll play those. I'll play concert A, and I'll play concert A flat. Okay. I'll start on concert A flat. All right. So you're going to notice that the exact same type of movement and shape, but now it's going to sound a little bit closer together because they're a half step apart. So sounds a little more sneaky to me, a little more chromatic. Okay. So yeah, very good. That's a good example. The last one that I wanted to go over quickly is triad pairs that are linked by tritone. Okay. The reason why you can link triad pairs by tritone is that I'll give you an example. If we have concert B flat and concert E, you'd have B flat, D, and F natural if it's a major triad, and then you'd have E, G sharp, and B. So again, 6 notes, no common tones, right? The only difference when you are playing through triad pairs that are separated by tritone is now you can't go the same way for inversions because whereas you could go root position, first inversion, second inversion, so on and so forth. Now it's going to be a little bit different. So check it out. If I play a concert B flat triad, right? And I was going to go to a concert E triad. The next note would be E, and it would sound like this. And then I'd be at concert B flat again. I'd kind of be stuck in this cycle, okay? So Christian, can you demonstrate this for us? Okay, play your G and D flat triads, and I just want you to play first inversion of, root position of both of them.
Okay.
So everybody can tell that I'm not making it up that you get stuck in this kind of infinite loop. Yeah, right. Okay. So that's great. And that sounds really cool. And that's the first thing that I did with tritone triad pairs as well. Now, there's more to life because there's 3 notes, right? And all we're doing there, Christian, you played G, B, D, D flat, F, A flat. I can't sing it. And then G, B, D again, right? Just those 6 notes. So now I want you to try this. Play G, B, D, And then from where you started, which is G natural, what's the closest available note to the next triad that you're going to, which is D flat?
A flat.
A flat, right? So you're gonna play G major triad, then you're gonna play D flat major triad in second inversion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just play that much. You got a sticky key?
Yeah, hold on. Oh yeah.
There you go, right? So it would sound like this the whole time through. Oh, sorry, you're playing your G,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
No, I'm playing my E.
Your
But
E.
ish.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Okay. So you okay. That's what you played?
Yeah. No.
Which one did you play? Concert what?
Concert B.
Concert,
Yeah.
concert B?
G.
G. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's the vibe, and that sounds again a lot more chromatic than what we did 5 minutes ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to necessarily. I'm not so concerned that everybody can. I mean, obviously, play all these things in an hour. It's a lot of information. I'm going really quickly. There's a PDF that I can send to Marcus. It's just a page out of this little ebook that I wrote on triad pairs that kind of will summarize hopefully everything that we get to today. I just wanted to give you this kind of the three starting points of how we would link triads. So, if you're writing on a piece of paper, big picture is you can link triads by many different ways. The triad pairs that we're doing so far have been linked by whole step, okay, by half step, and now by tritone. As a generic rule, you can write down and go back and investigate after the fact. If you're linking triads by tritones, then you can't play the same inversion one after another. Okay, and again, in the little thing that I sent Marcus to send out to all you guys, it should make a little bit more sense when you see it on paper. Another thing to have written down is that you can practice these in all different directions, right? So all up, all down, one down, one down, one up. Let's talk about application a little bit. Application is super important, and it's why I like triad pairs as a soloing technique or improvisational tool, I should say, because it cuts to the core of a sound without having to think about playing an entire scale. Those of you who have your videos on, raise your hand if you ever felt like on certain chords you have a hard time playing something that is melodic or doesn't sound like a scale-based thing, on a certain chord. Anybody have that issue? I do. I feel like the harder the chord, the more that is so, right? I feel like a common complaint I get from students all the time is, okay, I know the altered dominant, I know altered dominant chords, but I don't have any language to play over it. All I know is this scale that sounds really weird, and I'm not sure how to voice lead it. Right? Anybody had that before? I definitely had that growing up. This is a lifesaver for me because knowing how to apply certain triad pairs from certain points of the chord allowed me to express that sound without having to be. I was unencumbered by having to play an entire scale. Okay, so let's start with this. If you're writing this stuff down, triad pairs that are linked by whole steps can be applied several places. Okay, first one is going to be on a major chord. So on a major chord, from the first and second degrees of the scale, you can play triad pairs, major triad pairs, a whole step apart. So I'll give you an example. If the chord is concert B flat major, you can play a B flat major and a C major triad, and that sounds like this. So here's the chord. Okay, so those of you who are thinking about the triads, right, themselves, you have B flat, D, and F. That's all on the B flat major 7 chord. Then you have C natural, E natural, and G natural. What is interesting about an E natural on a B flat major chord? How do we quantify that in terms of like, yeah,
Sharp.
no, sharp 11. Okay. Yeah, okay. So if the chord is B flat major 7, which is exactly what I just played, and we're playing triad pairs from 1 and 2, you are implying the sound of major 7 sharp 11. Does it make sense to everybody? Okay. Major 7 sharp 11 is a commonly accepted implied color on a major chord. And if you've seen or you've heard the idea of sharp 11 and you don't know what it means, or you have a hard time understanding necessarily how you might integrate that or play that sound, I'm trying to make it as easy as I possibly can. You play triad pairs from 1 and from 2. Okay, so if I have, let's say I have this B flat major chord for an indeterminate amount of time. All of what I just played over that chord was using those 6 notes: B flat major triad and a C major triad. Okay. The reason why there is hopefully some diversity to what I just played is because of the directional changes. Okay, and the range of the instrument. Although I didn't really play anything that high or that low, it was all pretty much within an octave. Most people that I've ever met, if I said, okay, let's play major 7 sharp 11, they would just play the scale, and that would be about it, because what else are you supposed to do, on face value? So does the idea of using triad pairs, and just give me a thumbs up if your videos, does the idea of using triad pairs in this example make sense to you, and how you can kind of weed out a sound or express a sound? Okay, cool. So essentially, there are a lot of different options based on what chord you're dealing with. So again, just to recap, on a major 7 chord, you can use triad pairs from 1 and from 2, and that gives you the implied sound of major 7 sharp 11. I'll tell you something that James Moody told me when I was 15. I went to a thing called Ravinia Staines Institute program outside of Chicago, and I was way over my head, but it was amazing. And James Moody, who if you don't know, was like, one of the legends of the music, played with everybody and was a peer of all the people that we played the music for. He was my teacher for 2 weeks, and I remember studying So What with him. And I told him in one lesson, I said, hey, I feel really exhausted playing, the same scale over and over again, because So What is just 2 chords. It's D minor and E flat minor. And I had been really diligently working on playing these scales and intervals and things. And I said, Mr. Moody, what do? I played all my Dorian stuff that I can possibly think of. And he said, well, why don't you try playing harmonic minor? Why don't you try playing melodic minor? Why don't you try playing this and that? And I said, well, the chord change doesn't say that. And in the moment, he said something to me that I didn't really understand, but I've thought about it a lot every day since I've got serious about teaching. He said, well, if you waited for the chord change to tell you what to play, you'd miss more than half the colors in life. And at 15, I was like, okay, that must be some old jazz master stuff, because I don't understand that. Now it makes a hell of a lot of sense to me, because essentially what he's saying is, if you waited for that chord to say B flat major 7 sharp 11, then you'd only play these sounds when you saw B flat major 7 sharp 11. However, as an improviser, that's one of the really cool things about jazz, is you don't have to wait for anybody to tell you to do something. If you have the skill and the knowledge, you can imply these things. Imply and apply are kind of mutually exclusive. Okay, you can apply the sound to it, but it's also important to know how you're implying the sound on the chord. So again, just to give you an idea, like here's a very 5th grade voicing for B flat major 7. That's kind of it's kind of a cool way to get around the sound, and it doesn't sound like this, which is what you would learn out of a theory textbook. Okay, you can make that the most swinging scale of all time, but it's not going to sound like much other than a scale. Okay, so we have to find a way to get to the sound of the harmony without making it sound too rigid, and I think triad pairs is a good way to do it. You could also do you could do triad pairs from the 2nd and the 3rd degree of the scale. So let's do the same chord, B flat major. If you did it from the 2nd, you'd have I'm trying to think in my key. Give me a second. Yeah, you have C major concert and you have D major concert. Okay, so we already said that E natural on a B flat chord is sharp 11, and if we have a D major triad, we're gonna have an F sharp. So how do we quantify F sharp on a B flat major 7 chord? What do we call that?
Sharp 5.
Sharp 5, right? So if we're playing 2 triad pairs that have sharp 11 and a sharp 5, what we'd be expressing there or implying would be major 7 sharp 5. Again, a chord symbol that you're going to see in your time in jazz, but it might be kind of difficult to find your way around it. But if you have this knowledge behind it, I can play major triad pairs from 2 and 3, and it gives me this sound. It can be really interesting. So I'm going to play a regular B flat major chord here. I'm going to play this implied harmony, which is to sound pretty tense. That sounds pretty tense compared to that chord, and it's by design. Okay, but again, like it'd probably be better if you waited for the chord to say major 7 sharp 5 in that instance, just because it's a pretty dense sound. But everybody's meter in this, personally, everybody's meter for how much tension they want to deal with or not in this call right now is very different. Some people, this sound right here, Maybe that doesn't bother any of you. Okay, most people are like, oh my God, please resolve it. Right? Like most people are waiting for that for sure. Okay, but some people like, oh yeah, bring it on. The more weird notes, the better, right? But I think most of us when we start, it's going to be really hard to even hear this as being okay. And that note is sharp 11. Okay, so anyway, let's move on to minor chords. Okay, so on minor chords, we can apply triad pairs that are major triad pairs that are linked by the whole step from a couple different places. First one is from the third and the fourth note. Okay, so let's take C minor for instance. Okay, so Noah, what's the third and fourth note of a C minor scale?
E flat and F.
E flat and F, right? So if we play triad pairs, major triad pairs from E flat and from F, you get this kind of sound on that chord. So here's C minor. Okay, so that sound is nice because in the E flat triad pair, in E flat triad, you have E flat, G, and B flat, which is 3, 5, and 7 of that chord, right? And then the F triad pair, you have F, which is 11, A, which is 13, and C, which is the root. Okay, write this down. If we'll just write it down. 2 equals 9, 4 equals 11, 6 equals 13. 2 equals 9, 4 equals 11, 6 equals 13. That means that when you cross the octave, the second note is the same as the ninth, the fourth note is the same as the 11th, and the sixth note is the same as the 13th. When you name chords or when you see chords, typically, although not always, but almost 80% of the time or more, you're going to see things that are written 9, 11, 13 because that's how we write chords. When you see scales, you're going to hear them called something 2, 4, 6. Okay, 2, 4, 6 are scale steps. 9, 11, 13 are chord or extensions and how we label chords. So if by playing over C minor chord, we play E flat and F major triads, you have some good choices there because you're reinforcing the chord tones in E flat, G, and B flat, and then you're highlighting the extensions in F, A, and C because that's 11, 13, and then 1. Does make sense to everybody? Thumbs up for the most part? Okay, cool. Now, true or false? None of those notes that belong to those two triad pairs, none of those notes are tensions. Like none of those are outside of the key of C minor. True or false? Go ahead,
False.
Noah. Huh?
False.
Okay. Why do you? So let me. It could be false because I didn't specify. What about if C Dorian? Would they all be in the scale for the C Dorian?
That would be true then.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's good on you. If you had C natural minor or C other some type of minor, you'd have an A flat in there. But I'm assuming C Dorian minor. So if you're assuming C Dorian minor, then E flat, G, B flat, F, A, and C. Those are all in that chord, right? So it's just kind of a groovy way to access that chord. It's not based in the scale. How many of you who practice lines or when you find yourself improvising start your ideas without thinking about it majority of the time on the root of the chord? Anybody? You find yourself doing that? Okay. So here's another unintended benefit of playing with triad pairs. If you played triad pairs from the 3 and the 4 of this chord, you'd be playing something that started away from the root, right? And that gives you kind of a nice way to think about not playing lines that are so root oriented. It's not bad if you start in the root. That's a very logical place to play. But it's nice to have some diversity in where you start your lines. So it doesn't feel like every single time you pick up to start a new line, you're starting on the first part of the chord. In addition to why it's important, it's also you don't need to. Like you don't have to start. There's going to be a bass player and there's going to be a piano player who like between the two of them, are they going to be playing the root anyway, or at least one of them is going to have it in there, right? So you as a soloist ideally should feel free to start lines anywhere you want in a given chord. Most of the time it's going to be a chord tone. Sometimes it can be an extension or later in life, you can do things that are non-chord tones, tension tones, kind of like what we got to a second ago. Let's talk about kind of this. It's interesting you said that, Noah, because now we're going to talk about doing triad pairs on minor chords that kind of express different minor sounds. Okay, so if you wanted to play like melodic minor type sound, okay, you would play triad pairs from the 4 and from the 5. Okay, so on a C minor chord, the 4th is F, so F, A, C, and the 5 is G, G, B natural, and D. Okay, so for those of you who may need a refresher, melodic minor in jazz is different than it is in classical. In classical, melodic minor is one scale ascending and a different scale descending. In jazz, a melodic minor scale is the same scale up and down. It's kind of counterintuitive, but the way that I like to think about it is a melodic minor scale in jazz is a major scale with a lowered third. Just the easiest way for me to think about it, because that's what it is. So if I played D melodic minor, it'd sound like this. Okay. You can also think about it being a Dorian scale with a raised seventh if you wanted to, whatever is easiest for you to do. But if I play triad pairs on this chord from 4 and from 5, which again is F and G, it sounds like this. Okay, so you can hear a little bit what I was saying in 10 o'clock class is to me that sounds a little bit brighter. Does that make sense to everybody? There's a little bit something, this sound, if I play C minor and I hold this note, there's something about that needs to move up or down, right? A little bit brighter. All I'm doing is I'm playing a B natural on a C minor 7 chord, okay? And that B natural, in terms of where you get it from the triad pairs, is from the G major triad. It starts on 5. So again, the big rule is on another implication you can use for minor chords is to play triad pairs from the 4th note. Major triad pairs separated a whole step from the 4th and from the 5th. And that gives you a melodic minor type sound. Christian, what's one more type of minor that we might think about playing?
Could you do on the flat 7 and the 1?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, right. So that would give you, so flat 7 and 1 would give you in this key B flat major, and well, flat 7 and 1 would be kind of on a minor chord would be kind of interesting because though if you played a major triad from 1, you'd have a third that kind of directly conflicted with the chord, right? So on a dominant 7 chord, I would say yes, and we'll get to that in like 2 minutes. But like, okay, let me ask you a different way. I just gave it to you. We went through melodic minor, we went through Dorian minor. What's another type of minor just in general you can think of?
I mean, you can do harmonic minor.
Harmonic minor, okay? I'm glad you said that one too, because harmonic minor is kind of the goofiest one of all to me, because you have that weird interval between flat 13, flat 6, and then major 7, right? So if you wanted to play harmonic minor or express the harmonic minor sound with triad pairs, you would play a triad pair from 5 and then a triad pair from flat 6. And that means that you're playing now triad pairs in half steps, right? So on this one, the 5th of whatchamacallit, I'm sorry, you would play it from, from 5 and from flat 6. Yeah. So in this one, you would play from G and from A flat, right? And I give you the sound of harmonic minor. So I'll demonstrate that. So here's, and again, I haven't been changing the chord at all. I've just been playing an extremely generic C minor 7 voicing. Okay, so that has a lot of sauce to it. Okay, a very pedagogical term. A lot of sauce to it. Okay, because you have some different tensions in there, right? You have flat 13 and you have major 7. Both of those tensions belong to harmonic minor. So again, harmonic minor, just to review, I think about it being, how do I think about harmonic minor? A minor scale with a flat 6 and a major 7. So if I take our triad pairs from the 5th note and from the 6th note, and I put it over a minor chord, it sounds like this. Okay, which is definitely kind of a tense sound. But again, I'm glad this is recording because hopefully you get a chance to go back and kind of unpack some of these things. I'm going at a lightning pace. I understand that for sure. So let's talk about maybe doing triad pairs from a dominant 7 chord. All right, so on a dominant 7 chord, you can also do it from the 1st and the 2nd note. That would give you dominant 7 sharp 11. So if you're thinking about playing B flat dominant 7 concert, you play it from a B flat triad and a C triad. That would give you B flat, D, and F, C, E, and G natural. That would give you the sound of dominant 7 sharp 11. You're going to see dominant 7 sharp 11 a lot more often than you might think. And again, even if you don't see it, you can start to use these sounds as a way to imply that different harmony. That's one way to use it on dominant 7s from 1 and from 2. Christian mentioned a second ago doing it from flat 7 and 1. That works really well over dominant chord, specifically, or I should say, particularly if the dominant 7 chord is a sus chord. So what's a sus chord, Sam? Do you know anything about sus chords?
It's suspended fourth.
Yeah, right. So typically in a sus chord, you'll give prominence to the fourth note instead of the third. Okay. So if I play B flat 7 sus, it could sound like this. And then it kind of has a duh, it's a suspended sound. Okay, so you'd be playing dominant 7 sus to just dominant 7, right? The first one has like a lot of uplifting quality to it, right? And the second one is just a straight up dominant 7 chord. So if you played triad pairs from flat 7 and from 1, you would get this sound over that chord. Let me just play it for you. So B flat 7, I'm playing it from flat 7, which is A flat, and then from the root. So this. Sounds pretty pleasant, right? So again, dominant 7 sus chords, you could do it, or just dominant chords, you could do it from flat 7 and from 1. Let's talk about some of my favorite ones, which kind of get to the heart of playing hard sounds with easy devices. So if I played triad pairs from sharp 11 and sharp 5, write this one down. This is one of the most helpful ones I think that we'll get to. If I played triad pairs from sharp 5 from sharp 11, sharp 11, sharp 5, it would be super tense, but it would also give me the sound of altered dominant. So write this down if you need a refresher. Altered dominant, what are the 4 tension tones that we have to have for a chord to be considered truly altered? Noah.
You need the flat 5. You need the flat 9. And you need the sharp 4.
Uh-huh.
And
That's the same thing as flat 5.
yeah, sorry, I went backwards.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Flat 5, flat 9. The dominant 7.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot that. I don't know what the fourth one is.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So write this down, everybody. The 4 tension tones you have to have for a chord or a scale to be considered truly altered are flat 9, sharp 11, sharp 5. Flat 9, sharp 11, sharp 5. So if we did B flat 7, right, as an example, and we're playing triad pairs from sharp 11 and sharp 5, sharp 11, okay, same thing as sharp 4. So the sharp 4 of B flat is E natural. So E, G sharp, and B against a B flat chord. E is sharp 11, so that's 1 tension. G sharp is the dominant 7, so that's not a tension, but we need that for it to be the chord. And then we have B natural. B natural is flat 9. So in that one triad, we have sharp 11, 7, then flat 9. Then if we do a triad pair from sharp 5 on B flat 7, it's F sharp. So F sharp is sharp 5, B flat or A sharp, which is the third of F sharp major triad. That's the root of the chord. And then C sharp, okay, is sharp 9. So in those 2 triad pairs, in those 6 notes, we hit on every single altered note we need. Does it make sense? E is sharp 11, G sharp respelled as A flat is the dominant, the flat 7 of the chord. Then B is flat 9. Okay, these are, when I say flat 9, sharp 11, it's all relative to a B flat root. Then we go to the sharp 5, which is F sharp. F sharp is sharp 5 because F natural is the 5th. If we go up a half step, we have sharp 5. Then A sharp respelled as B flat is the root. A sharp is the third of F sharp major. And then C sharp, which is the 5th of F sharp triad. C sharp compared to B flat is sharp 9. Make sense to everybody? It's a crap ton of information. But let me play them. Okay, so again, here's like a really badly voiced dominant 7 chord by design. Okay, so that's a lot of tension, a lot of bang for your buck, as I like to say, by using 2 triad pairs. And the difference, yeah, Sam Goodwin, flat 9, sharp 11, sharp 5. That's exactly correct. Yep, flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11, sharp 5. Yeah. So check it out. This is pretty cool. If I change the backdrop of the chord here, you can tell the varying degrees of intensity using the same triad pairs. So check this out. Here's B flat 7, and I'm playing sharp 4 sharp 5. Now here's a different chord. Okay, that second chord, the triad pairs that I'm playing don't sound as out, right? You guys have probably heard the term like, oh, it sounds really out of the key or whatever. Okay, perspective is important. Nothing changed about what I just played other than the chord. So here's the first one where the sound sounds pretty harmonically grading. Sounds like this. Now here's where it doesn't sound as out. Okay, so true or false? The notes I was playing changed. Anybody? True or false? Sam, let's go with Tate Berry. True or false? The notes that I played changed, or no? Uh-oh, maybe he's on a lunch break. All right. So Sam Sharp, true or false? The notes that I played changed or not?
False.
False, right? What changed?
The chord under it.
Chord, right? So the weight of the notes that I played, they definitely changed because of the context of the chord. Does that make sense? Okay. If the chord is something that matches up with the notes that I'm playing, it's going to sound less tense. If the chord is further away from the notes that I'm playing, it's going to sound more tense. So like, let me think about another example here. How about this chord? This will sound interesting. Now, what's one thing I was doing with those triad pairs that I hadn't done previously? It's not the notes that were changing. It's just some way I was playing it. What do we call that? Big R word.
Rushing?
Rushing. Well, I hope I'm not rushing. I was looking for rhythm, right? So I'm that's a different rhythm, right? I hopefully what you're hearing was that it was a little bit faster, right? Yeah, so I think like I'm trying to give you a crash course in this from a lot of different directions. Like we started extremely practical, and now we're getting into the weeds harmonically, and now I'm starting to pull back the curtains on, okay, well, how do I make it sound anywhere near being musical, right? Because last thing that we want to do potentially is just like boo-ba-da, sha-ba-da, da-ba-da, jazz. Like that's not exactly what we're going for. But just like when you first started playing, there are going to be things you have to practice to feel comfortable to play things a little bit differently. You know what I mean? So I would take it as a huge win. Those of you who are a part of Future Jazz regularly, when you come into the next time we meet in person or whatever, that you could play over a tune and your playing is informed by using triad pairs. And if it was like just playing the triad pairs in different versions, I'm sure Marcus would be like, yes, that's a great start. You know what I mean? But if I played here, you guys all know blues, right? So if I play a blues and I use just one of the applications of triad pairs to a dominant 7 chord. Okay, so I'll pick the one that Christian said because that's one of my favorites. Okay, I'm gonna play a B flat blues, and I'm gonna play. Here's the chord changes: the 1 chord for the first 4 bars, the 4 chord for measures 5 and 6, the 1 chord for measures 7 and 8, and then 5 4 1. Okay, so a very simplistic blues, like you're at Famous Dave's. Everybody should know what Famous Dave's is. You're from the Midwest, right? You guys know about that awful barbecue place? Okay, so that was where I wanted to go for my birthday, like every year until I didn't anymore because I realized it was awful. Okay, but in Famous Dave's, they played the worst kind of 4 chord blues imaginable. Okay, so this is a Famous Dave's blues using triad pairs, and I'm going to be playing triad pairs from flat 7 and from 1 on each of these chords. 2, 1, here. Okay, so as I went through that, I started to play triad pairs that were obviously no longer beholden to 1 and flat 7. But I didn't play anything triadically that wasn't a part of the 3 that we've gone over. So on dominant chords, I played triad pairs from 1 and from 2. I played them from 1 and from tritone, and I played them from 1 and flat 7. Again, pretty effective way to play colors on a blues, right? And you can use the same colors on any chord, any progression that you want. I think it'd be really relevant for you before you even get to a progression, just to turn on like an I real B track, okay, make it all dominant chords for like eternity, and just try playing triad pairs over the dominant chords. Make a separate one just for major chords, minor chords, okay? If you do that, I think you're going to, I don't think, I know you're going to get your ears situated to the idea of using this type of language, okay? The cool thing about triad pairs too is that after you like much further down the road, once you feel like you have a good handle on them, you don't have to play them anywhere near as rigid as even what I just played. Okay, so if you think about playing triad pairs, the notes one after another, it would sound like this. Like here's a B flat triad, right? Here's a C triad. If I played root, root, third, third, fifth, fifth, it sounds like this. Okay, which kind of sounds like a pentatonic almost, right? So if I play the same example chorus on a blues and I play it more in a way that I call disguised, I'm still playing triad pairs, but I'm not playing necessarily ba ba da, sha ba da, this kind of stuff. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that sounds a little bit more linear than, and when I say linear, I mean like the notes go right after one another, right? There's not as much triadic motion to it, okay? So anyway, I've talked for 43 minutes straight with very limited interruption. Certainly there has to be questions, or there has to be rebellion or something, okay? Sam, what do you got for me?
Well, I was going to say, I don't know, this might sound really dumb. I was gonna type it in the chat in case it sounded really dumb, but like, I feel like I hear sometimes like players like Michael Brecker, do they use like diminished triads against each other sometimes?
No, that doesn't sound dumb at all. That's spot on. Absolutely, yeah. And I wish I had 4 hours to talk about triad pairs. I don't know about you guys. You're probably ready to clock out after a long week, but yeah. I mean, Michael Brecker used diminished ones. He also used. Send me a message. I'll send you the solo I transcribed. It'll be a really good tie-in to hopefully what Steven was talking about. And there's a solo he plays on Impressions, okay, with the McCoy Tyner Trio on this record called Infinity, and he plays this kind of stuff all the time. You can see you shaking your head, you know. Is that the kind of thing you were talking about?
Yeah, he like starts on like low B flat and then just goes super outside all the time.
Yeah, totally, man. That's, yes, good ears. No, it's not. That's furthest thing from it. There is no dumb question, you know, but that's the furthest thing from it. That's super informed. Yes, using triad pairs a lot. You know, I already mentioned him earlier, but Walt Weiskopf. If you listen to any of his recordings, it's like a almost an annoyingly overt influence, you know, of like, and I say annoying out of love because he's a master at it, but it's just like triad pairs in your face like all day long, you know. But if you want to hear somebody that uses it like just incredibly well, that's the dude to listen to. But yeah, I mean, Brecker definitely used them in that way too. But yeah, send me a message. I'll send you that transcription. You can see it on paper. You know, that's a great question. Yeah, and again, like we're just talking primarily about major triads right now, but you can do all the same things we talked about so far with minor triads, with augmented triads, diminished triads to an extent, for sure. You know, I think the application is just a little bit more. You have to think a little bit more critically about it because you have so many, let's say, just like weird notes. You know what I mean? A lot of the chords you have to think about are going to be, if you're doing diminished, it's almost always going to be applicable to like some kind of diminished sound because diminished is so kind of cookie cutter. You know, it's for those of you who aren't into diminished just yet, or maybe even if you are, I always find that applying the diminished sound is hard because it's a symmetrical scale, meaning that there's 8 different notes before you play a repetition of the tonic, which for whatever reason, that just always creates problems for me, like learning lines or playing stuff. But you can you can express the sound of diminished on a dominant 7 chord using triad pairs. In fact, if you played a triad pair from one and from, so write this down. If you play a triad pair from one and from tritone on a dominant 7 chord, that gives you the sound loosely of diminished. And that should make sense, because if we have B flat 7 concert and we played one from B flat and one from sharp 11, which is E, B, D, and F flat gives you the triad, and then E natural, okay, G sharp, and B natural, okay. E, G sharp, and B natural, those are all in the scale of B flat half whole diminished, okay, which would be the scale you would use in that chord. So it doesn't cover all of the notes because it can't. So it's a triad pair. They're triad pairs. They only cover 6 notes, but it gives you some that are kind of cool. So if I play that chord and I play B flat and E flat, E triads major, it sounds like this. That should sound very diminished to any of you who have kind of got there with your ears, But at the very least, if you're like, what the hell is half whole diminished? You can probably all agree it sounds a little bit, I don't know if you want to call it spooky or just kind of weird. You know what I mean? But that's the sound when you play from one and from tritone. Sam, any other questions? I'm intrigued by that line of thought.
No, I don't know, that's kind of interesting. What do putting augmented triads together, what does that do?
That's what I was actually playing when you were mentioning that example. Augmented triads, that kind of gives you and there again, that's one where it's going to be kind of like let's put it this way: the more harmonically daring it is, the more you're going to have to sit there and justify how it works. You know what I mean? Because if the chord is this, which is what it is in that solo a lot of times, and you're playing, there's a lot of notes in there that are really kind of rubby. You know what I mean? They rub against the chord. I think when you're dealing with tension, as long as you're able to resolve it or release it at the right time, then anything largely checks out. There are obviously things that you want to that you'll want to avoid potentially, but I think when you play with these sounds a little bit more, like I said, harmonically daring, having the mechanics behind it to be able to go in and out of the key like that, I think is predicated on what tools you're using, right? So when you do triad pairs with augmented chords, what I was doing there was I was playing C augmented and E flat augmented, okay? Because those, really, if you take an augmented triad from one, there's only 2 augmented scales, right? Because whole tone scales rather. So if you take one triad pair from one whole tone scale and one from the other one, you're not gonna have a note that repeats because they're two different scales. Does that make sense? So if you have C whole tone or B flat whole tone concert, and you go up a half step and you have B whole tone. Okay, a whole tone scale is just a scale that's organized by whole steps until you repeat towards the top. So if I took a triad pair from the first one and the second one, those are 6 different notes, right? So if I play them kind of like what I've been doing for the whole hour with major triads, I go. I'm sure you've heard listening to that. I'm sure that hopefully reminds you of some of the stuff Brecker plays. You know what I mean? Because that's all throughout his playing. But again, those books that I referenced previously, they would unpack some of that stuff probably even that much more, in terms of where to apply them specifically. It's a good question. It's a fair question. I've exhausted a lot of the stuff I want to talk about with triad pairs. I do have a couple of things I can say, but are there any other questions from anybody else that I can't see?
Are there triad trios?
That's a good question. So like 3 triads that don't share a common tone?
Well, that would be kind of hard, wouldn't it? I guess what I mean is like, when do you use more than just 2 triad pairs for a sound or 2 triads for a sound you want? But I guess then it would be just an extended triad and then another one.
Well, that's a good question. I think when you use more than 2 is just you can use them in tandem. So like when I was playing the blues, a minute ago, I was freely kind of going in between, just kind of dealer's choice. Like, oh, in this part of the chord, now I want to use these 2 triads, and I think if you work on solo in that way, where you don't have to think about okay, I'm doing one from 1 and 2 or from 7 and 1. You can just kind of freely move in between those. That kind of answers the question a little bit. But in terms of like using 3 different triad sounds, um, I will tell you this: there's an entirely different triadic way of playing with triads that has nothing to do with triad pairs, that will blow your mind, called the triadic chromatic approach, by George Garzone. If any of you guys are really into triads, but like it's completely different. But that would answer your question a little bit. But you'd also like probably pull your hair out because it's super interesting. You may love it, a good summer project. But George Garzone's triadic chromatic approach, that deals with kind of what you're talking about, like using more than 2 triads, but it's in a way that is directly different than what I'm suggesting here. And I know that because I had him as a teacher my first 2 years of college, and I showed up thinking, he's like, oh yeah, okay, triadic chromatic approach. I better practice on my triad pairs. So I went in there, and that was actually the worst thing I possibly could have done, because the mechanics of what he wanted to talk about were exactly opposite of the stuff that I would have been working on. So I would check that out if you're interested. But in terms of like when do I know how to switch or use different ones, I think just practicing them kind of rigidly, like I showed you the first part of the hour, and then applying them, that'll develop confidence in what you're playing, and then also over time it'll develop an aesthetic for which ones you like to use. And then hopefully it'll allow you to have just kind of the seamless quality to go in and out freely between the different options. Just like you do when you have a 2-5-1. I'm sure there's ways that you like to play in certain keys, even like, oh, in this key, I play, these set of ideas, or in this key, I don't do so well, or in, whatever. And I think one thing you should all be thinking about is like, well, it's a lot of information the whole week. And especially in this hour, I've just like been nonstop talking. But if there are keys that you struggle with, which everybody has keys that you struggle with, go back and try to apply some of the triad pairs in those keys, because it should, on the one hand, be like, oh man, it's going to be some work. On the other hand, it should be kind of liberating. 6 notes, and I can express a sound on 3 chords, that are everywhere in the music. Okay, I'm going to, pay attention to that. I think that would be something that would help everybody out. And that's why I'm interested in trying to work on triad pairs. Anything else? Any other questions for me about anything? I'll try and pair it out.
It was really thorough. I think I understand what you're talking about, but I guess I won't know until I play around.
Man, well, you guys are being all troopers. This is you never know how in depth to go in with this stuff, but I feel like I've given you, hopefully along the hour, things at every level. Like here's the basics, here's like some other stuff, and here's some like far-reaching things. This is a shameless plug, and I already gave you 2 other people's books to get, but I did do a little PDF like ebook on triad pairs. That's like $12 on my website, and it's all on major triad pairs. So if you want to get that, you guys, anybody that's here, you can just type in JAZZ as a code and get it for $6. It's like a 50-page book that has triad pairs written out in all 12 keys in all 4 directions, separated by a whole step, and it has an entire compendium of all the chords and where you apply them. For minor, major, half diminished, dominant, everything. That's it for me, guys. If you want to keep in touch, I'm easy to get a hold of. I know Tate's been taking, he's our stenographer for the whole week, it looks like. So you can put my email in there again, Tate, @LarsonMusician at gmail.com. Give a virtual hug to Marcus, man. This is amazing that you put this together. Thanks for letting me talk at you for an hour, and have a good rest of your summer.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Cool.
Man, everybody should get that book. What did you say the code was? Jazz?
Yeah, JAZZ. It's like, it ends up being like, I think like $6.
Yeah, $6. If you can't afford $6, message me and I'll give you $6 of your camp money back.
Nah.
Like Adam is such a great educator, and he knows how to explain things very thoroughly and clearly. So yeah, you could get that book and really expand on your knowledge. Like, I'm gonna go get the book. So, yeah, guys, thank you so much for a great week. Like I said, look for your videos. I've uploaded some videos, and I'm going to continue to do that here over tonight and over the weekend. So you'll have